What is up? So you guys voted, and it was pretty overwhelming. You are ready for the next installment in this $1 million Brain series. So this is the series where I try to download as much knowledge into your brain that it becomes really a set of algorithms. It's kind of algorithms to live by. It's principles to live by. And the reason I use algorithms more than principles or rules is, or before I would use principles or rules, is because it's more of a way of thinking than it is like, oh, this is a rule I'm going to follow. It still takes putting some creativity on top of these things, but I think that it lays a foundation for you to be able to build on top of whatever your goal is. Now, obviously, on this channel, we're talking a lot about private equity, buying businesses, doing acquisitions, building funds, all of that good stuff, becoming a financier. And so it's really crucial for those things. But I think that there are a lot of folks that don't really follow my philosophy as far as not being interested in starting businesses and that kind of thing. So I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs that can benefit from this whole series as well. So the strategy that we're talking about today, or this new algorithm that we're adding to the others that we've talked about, is how to ensure that you never lose. And it's funny because it's the direct opposite of what's going to come next. So you'll see what comes next. But this principle is how to make sure that you never lose this game we call money, or this game we call business. And I want to start by talking about the Vietnam War. It's something that I mentioned in this series before. I believe it was lesson 3. And there's a reason that war is really pertinent for us. It's because it's kind of the one born is the one time the U.S. has lost a war. A lot of people try to say, "Oh, we didn't lose a war." It's like if you go and you attack somebody and then you have to leave without achieving your goals, it's called losing. And the reason that is important is because it just shows that, man, this very tiny. I was just in Vietnam, and this very tiny country can beat what is it, not just we think about us as the land, but it's an empire. We are an empire. We have army bases that are all over the world, and we are the world's biggest power. And so the fact that this little country could stave off and eventually just have the U.S. give up is a huge deal. And it's pertinent to us because we are the small guys. When you look at this financier game, you look at the fund game, if you're looking at starting a fund, even when you get into buying and selling businesses, the big guys are on Wall Street. And they are the Goldman Sachs if you're talking about the financier strategies. They are the Black Rocks if you're talking about funds and taking on investors. Or KKR is even better one, just because they were kind of the original mega private equity fund. And we're these small guys that essentially can beat them. On an ROI basis, we have a big opportunity to be able to beat those guys, even though we're the small, small. So it's an interesting thing for us to take that perspective of, being the small, nimble player that can actually get better returns than the huge players that have a lot of those advantages. So the first rule of when you look at why Vietnam won that war, it's because they were in a game of forever. They were in playing a game of infinity. To give you their perspective and where this perspective comes from, and then I'll explain why it's so crucial. The perspective was okay. They had been in war just forever. They've been in war with China. After that, they were also at war with Japan. And sometimes they were fighting both. And what happened over time was they just accepted that, oh, okay, it's war is a part of life. Like that's not a weird thing. If somebody came into American soil and started a war, right, it would be people would be going crazy because they're not used to that. You look at what's happening in the Middle East, it's kind of a similar thing, not even as bad as some of the wars that Vietnam was dealing with, but still at that point now it's a very calm and chill place. But you look at Israel where it's just like bomb. They have systems that where alarms go off because bombs just come in regularly and blow stuff up from their enemies. And so you get used to that way of life, and it's important because once you get used to that way of life, and in the case of Vietnam, you start playing a forever game where everything is built around playing this game of, we're going to be at war. Like that's just a part of reality. There's no way for us to avoid that. And so once you accept that, if the other person comes into the game and they're thinking like basketball or whatever, like, okay, this is going to end at some point, they're at a huge disadvantage right off the bat because they're trying to end something that you don't have an end game. It would be like you're going to the basketball court and you're like, all right, we're gonna play this game, we're gonna play 4 quarters and blah blah blah. But the other person doesn't realize that you're playing to 21 or you're playing for the 4 quarters. They're just there to play. How can you ever beat them? And they're going to play for 24 hours a week. They're never going to leave. And I talked before the example that I used before with us with Vietnam, was having the right metrics, and the U.S. was using a metric of how many dead people that how many casualties we were causing, and that was a terrible, terrible metric for us because we included in that just all the casualties. But every time we had casualties, it would kill other people's family members, and then it would increase the number of people that said, yeah, like I'm willing to go to this war. So every time we had one casualty, we had 10 more people signing up to join the forces against us. So it was a terrible metric. And then the other side that I say for this one is that they had no plans of ever ending. We kept thinking, okay, man, we just had this devastating blow, and those people would be replaced, and it was like, all right, like let's keep going, and the U.S. would be ready for them to say, okay, you won, you got us, it's over. But the country as a whole, and that's what you have to have is that the country as a whole just was in it for the long haul. And so where that ties to us is we want to be that person that's in this game forever. Where I think one of the mistakes that people make is I'm looking to get to $1 million. I'm looking to have a business that makes me 10 grand a month. And the downside to those kinds of goals is that it puts a end in sight, and there's not necessarily a problem with having an end in sight, but you make that the focus instead of focusing on the journey, focusing on what you're doing, because you want to be able to do it forever. If you would have asked Warren Buffett, like, in the 50s, hey, what's your goal with this? He would have been like, man, I'd be happy if we can get to 100 million. And so you only reach those big mega goals by enjoying the game. Same thing with Richard Branson. Just the amount of stress as well that comes along. Warren Buffett looks like this happy-go-lucky guy, but he's had some huge losses and some things that went wrong. There was a thing where there was some criminal activity with Solomon Brothers. He didn't do it, but he owned the business, and so it kind of fell back to him because he was the largest shareholder, and it bought into the deal. So you have to have this attitude of just I play this game. It's not about reaching a certain goal. It's not about growing to a certain point, and you become the best player when you just want to get really, really good at playing the game. You go to a 14-year-old Michael Jordan who didn't even make his high school team, and somebody asks him, "Man, what if one day you could become MVP in the NBA and win a ring?" Would you be happy with that and be willing to stop playing, stop playing at that point? At that point, he just got kicked off his freshman team, didn't even make the team. He'd probably be like, yeah, like that sounds amazing. But to shift over into, I'm just going to play this game and get as good as I can. And even after 3 rings, I'm going to be in the gym practicing once when everybody else leaves and getting better and better at that. So that brings us to the second part of this, which is you can only do small things. One of the things that I learned from my mentor was to focus on small things, and this brings us to back to that idea of having big goals. I talk about my big plans and the future, what I want to do, and my goals for the year, and all of that. And I was really excited about those things, and he would really poo-poo those things like that means nothing. Who cares what you want to get done this year? Like, what are you going to do today? How much money are you going to make today? What are you going to put in your bank account today? That's what you need to be excited about and stressed out about. Not, can I build $1 million business? It's, what are you getting done today and getting excited about those really small steps. I'm involved in a informal kind of mastermind of some guys, and we were talking about resolutions and goals for 2020, and that was one of the things that came up, was this whole concept of let's just focus on the really small things. It's easy to get super excited about the big goal for the year. But what you see with the true achievers, and people ask me all the time, like, what's your goal for this year? What do you want to get done? It's like, man, I'm more excited about what's going to happen this week. I'm more excited about what I'm getting done today. I'm more excited about what I'm going to get done after I get done with this video and upload it. Those are the things that you want to get excited about, as opposed to those super big goals. And this goes back to the other principle that we talked about, and having that $1 million brain is, if everybody else does something, pretty much you can guarantee that you should do the opposite. And the simple reason is the average person isn't wealthy. We know the statistics in the US, the average person is in debt, has no more than a few $1,000s in their bank account. So if you don't want to be those people, pretty much you can guarantee, like, hey, what does everybody else do? Let me do the opposite. And that was the thing we talked about in this mastermind. It's like, if everybody else is talking about goals, and if everybody else has an easy time of getting excited about that long-term big goal, then it's probably smart to do the opposite and not get excited about those really big goals. And so, as opposed to, as an example, as opposed to thinking, okay, like I want to have a business doing $100,000 a month, it's breaking that down. Getting excited about, man, let me really pay attention to this process of creating an LLC. And even within creating an LLC, let me get excited about, like, what EIN, let me get my EIN number, and that becomes a big goal. And let me get my operating agreement, and that becomes something that you're really in. And the other thing with that is it pulls you in. You're not just, because that's something that you're focused on and excited about, you're doing it with excellence, and it's not just something that you just going through the motion of, because the only thing you're excited about is that goal. And this comes to mind, as a lot of you know, and have reached out, and I really appreciate I lost somebody close to me, and it was really kind of, I mean, the neat thing was going through the photos, in this day and age. You just have so many photos, and unfortunately he was young, 19, but from birth to 19 we just had thousands of photos. And it was cool to see, like, man, like there were a lot of amazing moments and some, it had some amazing accomplishments and some really cool things. And it was just, okay, like, wow, like that was a really good life. And I think sometimes we can think, oh, the future could have been great and this didn't happen, that didn't happen. But I think looking at that journey, that's what you want to build. What you want to build, and the reason that focusing on the small thing is bigger. It's way bigger than just the business. It's that the small things is what your life is. And if you could focus on trying to build that business, and we get so, you hear celebrities, you hear people, wealthy people talk about this all the time. When you attach your happiness with that big goal, a lot of times you're going to be disappointed, anyways. So this isn't just a practical thing; it's also just one of those things that's important for your life. And in addition to business, it's once you get to that big goal, you're going to realize, okay, I'm still the same person. I'm still doing the same things. It's the reason that Warren Buffett goes to work every day. It's because like the journey is the goal. There's not some other goal in the future. There's not some, oh, like let me, once I get to this point, then I'll be able to relax and I'll allow myself to be happy. It's every day, like what am I doing today? One of the things that I'm working on is this concept of waking up every day and planning a truly extraordinary day. You have an option every morning, every single morning, you have this option to wake up. And by default, if you don't make a decision, you're going to go through the motions and you're going to have an ordinary day. And that, again, is what the average person is doing. They just wake up and things happen. They go through their day. They're happy, nothing bad happens. And then they wake up the next day and do the same thing again. What very, very, very few do is wake up and make a decision that today is going to be extraordinary. Every moment that I have, the words that I utter to other folks, each little aspect that I allow into my day, I'm going to try to put excellence into it and create extraordinary experiences. And that should be the goal. And then you end up building this journey that still gets to the end goal. And a lot of times, this is kind of biblical as well. But a lot of times, whether you believe in the universe or God or whatever, the what you're capable of and the plans that are available to you and the goals that could be achieved by you are way bigger than anything you ever dreamed or imagined. So hopefully this is something and is a kind of a separate algorithm that you can live by, which is two things. Number one, really focusing on being that nimble small person that's in the game forever. You can't lose. Let's say you buy a business that goes out of business, you haven't lost because you're in the game forever. You're just like, this was a part of the game. Like it's that person that even if they're down 100 points in the basketball game, they haven't lost because they're still playing. Like I'm still here playing. The game isn't over. The second part of this is really focusing on those small things. And then the third part of this is it's easy to get excited about those small things when you're somebody that is planning on making each of those small things and doing them with excellence and making them extraordinary, which is something that the average person isn't doing. If you guys are getting value out of this series, share this series with folks. I've gotten a lot of good feedback from you guys. I think this is knowledge that a lot of people could benefit from. So if you're getting some value, share this. As always, be sure to like, love in the comments. Appreciate all the love that I've gotten after my recent loss. and looking forward to 2020, guys. I got a lot of really great things happening, and I'm actually probably going to do a two for today. I'm going to have this next video going, but yeah, like below, comment, tell me your thoughts on this. Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much.